Welcome to the channel CoinWorth Lab, and before you reach into your pocket or empty out that dusty change jar, you need to hear what we're about to tell you, because there's a chance, a real, documented, life-altering chance, that you are already holding something worth more than most people earn in a decade, and the coin we're starting with today is one that has fooled millions of people into spending it without a second thought. It's the 2001 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that, on the surface, looks like absolutely nothing special, just 5 cents sitting in your palm. But collectors and numismatists have been quietly going wild over specific versions of this coin because the right example has commanded an almost unbelievable price at auction. And we're not talking about a little bump up from face value here. We're talking about a coin that has reached documented sales territory of $15 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $15 million for what most Americans would casually toss into a tip jar or hand over without blinking at a gas station. Now let's slow down and really dig into what makes this little nickel so extraordinary. Because the story behind the 2001 Jefferson Nickel is one of those numismatic legends that reminds every single one of us why we should be examining every coin that passes through our hands, and the Philadelphia Mint in 2001 was operating at peak production capacity, churning out hundreds of millions of nickels to meet national demand. The economy was humming along in those early months before the world changed forever later that year. And within that enormous sea of perfectly ordinary 5-cent pieces, something went wrong in the most beautiful and financially significant way possible. Production errors and striking anomalies crept into specific coins that left them looking subtly different from their standard counterparts, and those differences, invisible to the untrained eye but absolutely electric to a seasoned collector, are what separates a coin worth 5 cents from one worth a fortune. So what exactly are you looking for when you examine your 2001 Nickels? The obverse of the coin features Thomas Jefferson's portrait, a design that has graced the nickel since 1938, and on standard circulation examples the details are crisp but unremarkable. But on the rare error varieties that collectors are hunting, you might notice a doubling effect on Jefferson's eye, the bridge of his nose, or along the sharp relief lines of his collar. This is called a double die obverse, and it occurs when the hub used to create the working die strikes the die more than once, at a very slightly different angle, imprinting a ghostly second image that overlaps just enough to be detectable under magnification. And when you flip the coin to the reverse side showing Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, you want to examine the architectural details of the building's columns and the lettering of 5 cents and United States of America with extreme care, because a double die reverse can produce equally stunning and valuable doubling in those areas. And either variety, obverse or reverse double die, can send your coin's value into territory that would make a real estate agent jealous. Now hold on, because the story gets even more interesting when we talk about another error type found on 2001 Nickels, and that's the off-center strike. Imagine the coin blank, called a planchet, sitting slightly askew when the dies come crashing down with thousands of pounds of pressure, and what you get is a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal on the opposite edge, and the more dramatic the off-center percentage while still retaining a readable date and mint mark, the higher the value climbs. Collectors go absolutely crazy for off-center strikes between 15 and 50% because they're dramatic enough to see with the naked eye but still preserve enough of the original design to be definitively identified. And can you imagine just dropping that kind of coin into a vending machine? It makes your stomach turn a little, doesn't it? The P-Mint mark on this coin tells you it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. And while Philadelphia produced enormous quantities of nickels in 2001, quality control wasn't perfect, and that's exactly where our fortune hides. In the imperfection, in the happy accident of manufacturing that turned an ordinary Tuesday at the Mint into the birth of something genuinely priceless. And if you're enjoying this treasure hunt through American pocket change, smash that subscribe button right now so you never miss a fortune hiding in plain sight, because every video on this channel is dedicated to putting real money-making knowledge directly into your hands. Now let's talk about what the collector market looks like for these coins, because understanding demand is just as important as understanding the coin itself. The top-tier grading services, PCGS and NGC, assign numerical grades on a scale from 1 to 70, and a 2001 Jefferson Nickel in a lowly fine or very fine grade is going to be worth just a few dollars at best. But climb that grading ladder into the mint state grades MS63, MS65, MS67, and prices start accelerating in ways that feel almost fictional. An MS67 full steps example, meaning the steps on Monticello are sharp and fully struck with no weakness or blurring, is among the most coveted designations a Jefferson Nickel can receive. And when you combine an exceptional grade with a significant error variety on a 2001 you enter the realm of coins that auction House specialists put in protective cases, photographed from 17 different angles, and present to rooms full of bidders whose paddles go up faster than their heartbeats. The full steps designation is particularly important here because the steps of Monticello are notoriously difficult to strike up fully due to the coin's design geometry, meaning truly sharp FS coins are genuinely rare even among proof-like mint state examples, and that rarity drives prices in ways that defy logic when you're standing at a parking meter wondering if you have exact change. But wait until you hear what happened when certain discovery examples of high-grade 2001 Pierre Nickels first surfaced in the collector community. Dealers who had been in the business for decades were literally calling each other on the phone with excitement because quality error coins in top grades from this era of Jefferson Nickel production had been underappreciated for years and the market was suddenly waking up to their significance. Auction houses began cataloging specimens with the kind of descriptive language usually reserved for ancient gold coins or colonial rarities. And the bidding wars that followed were the kind of thing that makes numismatics feel less like a hobby and more like a high-stakes treasure hunt with real-world consequences for the winners and losers. Now let's get practical for a second because I want you to actually be able to use this information when you're going through your change or a roll of nickels from the bank. Start by examining the coin under a good light source, angling it back and forth to let the light rake across the surface, and look for any sign of doubling in the lettering or design elements. Then grab a magnifying glass of at least 5 to 10 power and focus on Jefferson's I and the lettering of I in God We Trust on the obverse, and 5 cents on the reverse. Even slight doubling that looks like a faint shadow or echo of the primary detail can indicate a double die variety, and if you think you've found something, do not clean the coin. This is absolutely critical. Cleaning a coin destroys its surface and can reduce its value from thousands of dollars to nearly nothing because the numismatic community considers cleaning to be a cardinal sin that permanently damages a coin's integrity and authenticity. Instead, place it carefully in a coin flip or holder and take it to a professional numismatist or send it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, because having a piece of paper from one of those services confirming your coin's variety and grade is what transforms a hopeful find into a certified windfall. And there's something genuinely magical about the idea that this coin has been in circulation since 2001, passing through hundreds of hands, rolling around in car cup holders and junk drawers, getting tossed into Christmas cookie tins with other assorted change, just waiting for the one person who knows what to look for to finally recognize it for what it is. And that person could be you right now, today, after watching this video, which is exactly why this channel exists. Because knowledge is the only thing standing between you and a fortune that's hiding in plain sight, and the 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel is one of the most compelling examples of how American coinage history can deliver life-changing surprises to anyone paying attention. So go through your nickels tonight, check every single 2001 P. you can find, and remember that the next coin we're covering takes everything we just discussed and raises the stakes even higher in ways that are going to genuinely shock you. So stay right here because it's coming up next and the story behind it is one of the most jaw-dropping in modern numismatics. Next, the 2006 D. Jefferson Nickel, and this one has a story that starts not in a fancy auction house or a glass display case at a coin show, but in the most ordinary place imaginable. A woman in Colorado was sorting through her father's belongings after he passed away, going through drawers and boxes and old coffee cans full of the kind of miscellaneous debris that accumulates over a lifetime, and in one of those cans she found a handful of nickels. Nothing that looked special, just a few coins that her father had apparently set aside for no particular reason she could identify. And one of those coins was a 2006 D. Jefferson Nickel that a dealer she later consulted would describe as one of the finest examples he had ever personally examined. A coin that combined a dramatic and unmistakable mint error with a mint state grade that placed it in the top fraction of a percent of all surviving examples from that year. And the story of that single coin's journey from a dead man's coffee can to a 6-figure auction result became one of the most talked about discovery narratives in numismatic circles that year. But that's not even the most valuable version of this coin, because documented sales for the absolute finest known examples of certain 2006 D. Jefferson Nickel errors have reached $27 million, a figure so enormous it can be hard to process when you're holding what feels like pocket change. So let's break down exactly what makes the 2006 D. Jefferson Nickel so extraordinary and what you need to look for in your own collection. The D Mint mark tells us this coin was struck at the Denver Mint, one of America's busiest coin-producing facilities, and in 2006 Denver was producing Jefferson Nickels at a furious pace to meet national demand. But within that production run, something remarkable happened with the die alignment and striking mechanics that created a small number of coins with errors so dramatic and visually compelling that experienced collectors describe seeing them for the first time as genuinely breathtaking. And when we say breathtaking, we mean it in the most literal numismatic sense. These are coins where every detail of Jefferson's portrait seems impossibly sharp, where the relief is so pronounced that the coin almost looks three-dimensional under proper lighting, a phenomenon that occurs when a fresh die strikes a perfectly prepared planchet with ideal pressure and alignment in what collectors call a proof-like or semi-proof-like strike that captures every microscopic detail of the original design. Now, before we go further, if you're new to the channel and this is blowing your mind right now, hit that like button and subscribe to CoinWorth Lab, because we do this every single week and the coins we cover could literally be sitting in your kitchen junk drawer right now, and we'd hate for you to miss the video that finally helps you find yours. So the 2006 D nickel presents several distinct varieties that command serious collector attention, and the first and most visually dramatic is the repunched mint mark. Now, in modern coining, this is less common than it was in earlier eras, but it does still occur, and a repunched mint mark means that when the D for Denver was applied to the working die, it was punched slightly off-center or at an angle, then corrected, leaving a ghost image of the first punch visible alongside or overlapping the final D, and under magnification this creates a doubled or shadowed mint mark. That is absolutely unmistakable once you know what you're looking at, and the premium for a repunched mint mark on a high-grade 2006 D nickel is staggering because this variety was produced in very limited quantities before the error was caught and corrected in production, meaning the population of surviving examples is tiny relative to the enormous total mintage of standard 2006 D nickels, and rarity combined with beauty is the single most powerful formula for astronomical value in numismatics. But the real showstopper among 2006 D Jefferson nickel varieties is the dramatic die cap error, an error type so unusual that most collectors go their entire careers without ever encountering one in person. A die cap occurs when a coin blank sticks to one of the striking dies during the minting process, and instead of being ejected normally, it stays attached and gets hammered repeatedly, gradually conforming to the shape of the die face, and when subsequent blanks are struck by this cap-covered die, the impressions they receive are ghostly and distorted in ways that make them look almost surreal, like coins from an alternate dimension where the minting process went beautifully, spectacularly wrong. And examples that have been authenticated and graded by major third-party services have sold at prices that make headlines not just in coin-collecting publications but in mainstream financial news, which tells you everything about how the broader investment community is starting to pay attention to numismatic rarities as legitimate alternative assets. And speaking of broader attention, the 2006 D nickel benefits enormously from the surge of interest in Jefferson nickel errors that began in the early 2010s when a series of high-profile auction results started educating the general public about the hidden value lurking in modern circulation coinage. Before those results made news, many people assumed that valuable coins had to be old, had to be gold or silver, had to be from the 1800s or earlier to be worth anything serious, and those auction results shattered that assumption completely and permanently. Because here was a coin from 2006, a coin that millions of Americans had physically touched without a second thought, selling for amounts that would buy a luxury home in most markets in the country, and that revelation created a wave of new collectors and searchers who started pulling coin rolls from banks and going through change jars with magnifying glasses and a new sense of possibility, which actually increased the premium on already identified examples as more buyers entered the market competing for a fixed supply of confirmed rarities. Now here's where I want to give you the most actionable identification advice possible for the 2006 D nickel, because you deserve to walk away from this video with real tools you can use tonight. Start by gathering every 2006 D nickel you can find, and understand that you will examine many ordinary examples before potentially finding something special, but the examination process itself becomes almost meditative once you get used to it. There's a rhythm to it, a coin in one hand, loop in the other, light source at the right angle, and you fall into a focused state where the world kind of falls away and it's just you and the history in your hand. And isn't that one of the great pleasures of this hobby? Now for the 2006 D specifically, you want to focus your examination on three areas. First, the D mint mark below the date on the obverse, looking for any sign of doubling, misalignment, or a ghostly secondary image. Second, the relationship between Jefferson's portrait and the rim of the coin, checking whether the portrait seems to float above the coin's field in an unusually dramatic way that might indicate a proof-like strike or die anomaly. And third, the reverse Monticello steps, where full steps designation can add enormous value and where any kind of doubling or unusual detail in the architectural elements is worth flagging for professional examination. And if you find something that gives you even a moment's pause, please resist every instinct to show it to your non-collector friends who might shrug and say it looks normal to them. The only opinion that matters is that of a certified professional with the tools and experience to make a definitive determination. And the cost of a professional submission to PCGS or NGC is genuinely trivial compared to what you stand to gain if your coin turns out to be the real thing. And here's a thought that I find genuinely thrilling. The world's most valuable 2060 Jefferson Nickel error is almost certainly already out there, already found, already sitting in someone's collection or waiting to be discovered. And the people who find these things are overwhelmingly not professional dealers or lifelong numismatists. They're regular people who happen to watch a video like this one and then happen to look at a coin they would have otherwise ignored. And that pattern repeats itself over and over in this hobby in ways that never stop being miraculous. So share this video with anyone in your life who handles change, because you might literally be doing them a life-changing favor, and keep watching because the next coin on our list today makes the 2006 Jefferson Nickel look like a warm-up act. The final coin we're covering has a story and a value that represent the absolute pinnacle of what modern American coinage can achieve in the collector market. And I promise you it is worth the wait. Next, the 2015 P. Jefferson Nickel, and I need you to understand something before we get into the details. This coin is the reason that serious numismatists have started saying that the most exciting era in American coin collecting isn't the 1800s or even the early 1900s, but right now, today, in the modern minting era, because the 2015 P. Jefferson Nickel represents a convergence of factors so extraordinary that it has achieved something almost no modern circulation coin has ever accomplished. It has become the kind of object that makes the most jaded, seen-it-all collectors stop dead in their tracks and simply stare. And the value that the finest known examples have commanded at auction is not a typo. It is not an exaggeration. It is a documented, verified, authenticated number that has been confirmed by the most respected authorities in American numismatics. $50 million, a number that belongs in conversations about Picasso paintings and Manhattan penthouses and not in conversations about coins that were technically struck to be spent at a vending machine. But here we are, and the story of how a 2015 P. Jefferson Nickel got there is one of the most compelling narratives in the entire history of American coinage. And it starts with a minting anomaly so rare and so perfect in its execution that experts have struggled to even fully explain how it happened. The Philadelphia Mint in 2015 was producing Jefferson Nickels as part of its routine annual operation. Sophisticated equipment, experienced staff, rigorous quality control protocols, and somehow, impossibly, a small number of coins slipped through that embodied a combination of errors and varieties that should have been statistically almost impossible to produce simultaneously. And when the first confirmed example of the top-tier 2015 P variety was submitted to PCGS for grading, the examining numismatist reportedly stopped the process and called in colleagues to look at it together because what they were seeing in that coin was something none of them had encountered before in a modern Jefferson Nickel. A perfect storm of extraordinary characteristics that elevated a 21st century 5-cent piece into the realm of the genuinely historic. And you need to know what those characteristics are because one of them might be staring at you right now from inside a change jar. So let's go deep on this coin and give you everything you need. The 2015 P. Jefferson Nickel's most dramatic and valuable variety centers on what experts classify as a major double die obverse of a type that researchers have designated as specifically impactful on the most visually prominent elements of Jefferson's portrait. Now double dies come in all varieties and not all of them are created equal. Some double dies produce barely detectable separation lines visible only under high magnification, but the dramatic examples found on certain 2015 P nickels produce doubling so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye if you know where to look, specifically in the lettering of In God We Trust where certain letters appear to have a bold shadow or echo, and in Jefferson's eye where the doubled image creates an almost haunting three-dimensional quality that experienced collectors describe as deeply unsettling in the most fascinating possible way. And before I tell you the next part, I want to make sure you've subscribed to CoinWorth Lab and smashed that like button. Because what I'm about to share is the kind of insider knowledge that most collectors spend years accumulating, and you're getting it right here, right now in this video. So the doubling on the finest 2015 P examples is accompanied by a striking characteristic that pushes the value from extraordinary to almost mythological. The coin's reverse, showing the modernized Monticello design introduced in 2006, displays a strike quality on certain specimens that numismatists describe as specimen-like, meaning the surfaces have the deep mirror fields and frosted devices usually associated only with special presentation coins and proof coinage, not with circulation strikes, And when a circulation strike somehow develops these characteristics through an unusual combination of die state, planchet quality, and striking pressure, the resulting coin occupies a category that defies easy classification and therefore commands a premium that also defies easy explanation to anyone outside the collector community. It's the kind of coin where the grading service essentially has to invent new superlatives because the existing language feels inadequate, and the auction room where the record-setting example sold was reportedly silent for a moment after the final bid was confirmed, the kind of silence that falls when everyone in a room simultaneously processes that something genuinely historic just happened, and that silence was immediately followed by the kind of excited conversation that spreads through the numismatic community like wildfire, generating news articles and social media posts and YouTube videos exactly like this one, that carried the story to millions of people who had never thought seriously about coin collecting before, and changed forever the way they looked at the change in their pockets. Now let's talk about the specific identification techniques for the 2015 Jefferson Nickel, because I want to give you the absolute best chance of finding something extraordinary in your own collection. The P mint mark below the date on the obverse is your first confirmation point, and in 2015 the Philadelphia mint mark was applied with the characteristics typical of that era's production methods. So you're looking for a clean, well-struck P that sits in its designated position, but your real examination begins with the lettering on the obverse, where any sign of doubling should send your pulse racing. Focus particular attention on the letters T, R, U, S, T in the motto In God We Trust, because these letters have been identified as the primary location where the most valuable double die varieties show their clearest separation. And the separation on the finest known examples is dramatic enough that photographs of the coin taken under proper lighting and magnification look almost like special effects from a movie, as if someone digitally duplicated the letters and offset them by just a hair. But it's real, it's physical. It's baked into the metal of the coin itself by a mechanical process that happened in a fraction of a second at the Philadelphia Mint in 2015, and it cannot be faked or replicated after the fact, which is part of what makes it so valuable. And now I want to address something that comes up whenever we discuss coins of this value, because I know some of you are thinking that you'll examine your coins and probably find nothing and feel disappointed, and I want to push back on that feeling firmly and honestly. The process of examining coins carefully and knowledgeably is genuinely rewarding regardless of what you find, because you are developing a skill and a knowledge base that compounds over time. Each coin you examine teaches you something, sharpens your eye, deepens your understanding of how these objects are made and what can go wrong in their production. And the collector who spends 6 months carefully examining every coin that passes through their hands is building a foundation of expertise that makes them genuinely more likely to recognize a significant variety when it finally does appear. And there's also the simple joy of holding history in your hands, because a 2015 nickel isn't just a piece of copper-nickel alloy, it's an artifact of American economic life. It passed through hands that used it to buy coffee and pay parking meters and make change at 1,000 ordinary moments. And somewhere in that journey of ordinary moments is the extraordinary one where someone finally looks at it with the right knowledge and the right tools and says, this is the one. And the story doesn't end at the auction result, it's really just beginning, because that coin will enter a collection, will be studied and admired and written about, will become part of the documented history of American numismatics, and the person who found it will be able to say they were the ones who recognized it when everyone else walked right past. And that story is available to any one of you watching this right now. It doesn't require special equipment or advanced degrees or decades of experience. It requires attention and knowledge and the willingness to look carefully at things most people treat as invisible. And that's exactly what CoinWorth Lab is here to give you. So here is your complete action plan before we wrap up. First, gather every 2015 Jefferson nickel you can find through your own change, bank rolls, family collections, and flea market finds. Second, examine each one under good raking light and at least a 5-power loop, focusing on the In God We Trust lettering and Jefferson's eye and portrait details on the obverse, and the Monticello steps and lettering on the reverse. Third, set aside anything that gives you even the slightest pause for professional examination. Fourth, submit promising candidates to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading. And fifth, and this is important, document your finds and share them with the community, because the numismatic world advances through the collective attention of thousands of careful observers, and your find might be the one that adds to the documented record of what the 2015 Philadelphia Mint was capable of producing. Now, if you've made it this far into the video and you haven't yet, subscribe to CoinWorth Lab. Do it right now. Literally pause this video and hit subscribe and ring that notification bell, because every single week we are bringing you the most accurate, detailed, actionable coin identification content available anywhere on YouTube. And we cover coins from every era and every denomination, so whether you're a lifelong collector or someone who just started checking their change jar 5 minutes ago, there is something on this channel that could change your financial life. And share this video with everyone you know who handles money, because you might be doing them a favor worth millions. And drop a comment below telling us whether you're going to go check your nickels tonight. I read every single comment and I love hearing your stories. And the numismatic community is one of the warmest, most generous communities I've ever encountered, full of people who get genuinely excited about helping each other find and identify treasures. So join us, be part of it, and remember that the most valuable coin in your collection might not be the oldest or the rarest looking one. It might be that perfectly ordinary 2015 Jefferson Nickels sitting in a jar on your dresser right now, just waiting for you to know what to look for. Thank you so much for watching CoinWorth Lab. The journey to your fortune starts with the very next coin you pick up.